In Absolute Batman number 8 from DC Comics, Bruce Wayne learns that the cold sting of death is nothing compared to the icy touch of Mr. Freeze. Is it worth the cover price? Let's find out in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. After reading Absolute Batman number 8, I have to say I think I'm kind of impressed a little bit here. Writer Scott Snyder takes a break from the big bombastic over-the-top theatrics and the big dumb Batman type of storytelling to deliver an issue that's a bit smart, emotionally gripping, I think, to a certain degree, and meaningful, with a bit of horror baked into it for good measure. I'm not sold on the art. I don't think it's particularly strong, but the writing in this story is excellent. I'm going to give you some of the pros before moving to the cons, and then maybe you can make up your own mind. Scott Snyder succeeds on, I think, multiple levels here by creating a Class A villain introduction in the form of Mr. Freeze, who is technically speaking Victor Freeze Jr. He fills in a piece of Bruce's backstory that enriches his motivations because the classic example of his father dying just by getting gunned down at random is not quite what you thought it was, and we get more of that picture filled in, and it turns the story on its head a little bit. And we also get the hero having to fight through what you consider to be an impossible amount of odds to survive. And he uses that setback, because he doesn't quite succeed, to basically learn and grow a little bit as a human being and as a hero. Absolute Batman number 8 is surprisingly dramatic and a fairly deep emotional issue. It far exceeds anything that you're going to get out of the normal Bat office over in the main Earth Prime universe. So I think this is really a big step up for the series. So what's not great about Absolute Batman number 8? There's really two flaws, I would say, that impact this issue. The first is the art, and I'll talk about the art separately, so let's put that aside for a second. The other piece is just the sheer number of open mysteries that you have to keep track of to remember what's going on, and it's starting to get a little bit too much to juggle. For example, where did Alfred go? He made a big show of Alfred in the first arc, and now he's just nowhere to be found. Who or what is in control of Arc M, which is this loony bin sort of prison type facility that's under construction that seems to already be in use? What's up with that gross tentacle guy at the end of issue number 6? Where did he come from? Where did he go? And who was it? Who hired Freeze to infect the citizens of Gotham City, and why? Apparently there's some benefactor. Who does Alfred work for? Is it MI6? Is it a branch of MI6? What's going on there? And what is their secret agenda related to the Joker and this big network of crime syndicates? What's the Joker up to? I don't know. The point here is you get this list that keeps building and building and building of all these questions that never get answered or have yet to be answered after we're at issue 8 by now. A handful of mysteries? Fine. Sure. Give me a list that I can keep track of and keep my mental gears processing in the background, whether stuff that's happening in the forefront is taking place. But here the list is starting to get too long and it's getting unwieldy. So let's switch gears and talk about the art. We have Marcos Martin, who remains on this two-parter as the guest artist instead of Nate Dragotta. Martin's movement style and his anatomy for Freeze and his frozen zombies, and if you're wondering what that is, I'll describe it in the synopsis section, adds a huge creep factor to this issue that makes Freeze a more formidable type of villain compared to the traditional Mr. Freeze, who's basically a guy who needs to stay cold and fires an ice gun. This is a monster. Freeze is spindly, deceptively strong, and monstrous looking, enough to put anyone back on their heels. I mean, this is like Slender Man type of territory, and that's creepy, and it's gross, and it's great for what we're trying to do here. On the flip side, Martin's style in a lot of the scenes, especially during the action scenes, is flat, and he uses that art house indie style, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit. It doesn't match Dragotta's hard-hitting edge. Even though Dragotta's got his own sort of exaggerated, bombastic style, this is different and not nearly as good. So, for me, the art is a mixed bag of positives and negatives. Before we jump into the meat of the issue and what actually happened, let's recap, because it has been a month. When we last left the Cape Crusader from the Darkseid universe in issue number 7, Bruce Wayne sought the help of Matches Malone, a childhood friend, to get fake credentials. What did he want them for? He wanted to infiltrate this sinister Arc M prison facility. Matches agreed, but the low-level crook died after he was exposed to a deadly infection. Bruce's investigation led him to a research business specializing in cryogenic solutions. When Bruce observed the presence of the same infectious material that killed Matches, he was attacked by the person leading the lab, Victor Fries Jr., who is the son of Victor and Nora Fries and the first person to survive the cryogenic freezing process as a medical solution. So let's dig into Absolute Batman number 8. Bruce wakes up to find himself strapped inside a cryostasis chamber by Victor Fries Jr. The villain explains that Bruce's icy prison will torture him endlessly forever, while all his cells in his body scream from the pain of being cold beyond anything he's ever experienced before. Freeze activates the chamber and leaves to go make essentially a phone call, while the chamber slowly fills with this cryo-freeze liquid that sears your skin and creates immense pain. Bruce's only chance of escape is to use the mini Batarang launcher hidden inside his arm cast, which Freeze neglected to take off. The tank keeps filling up and the freezing pain increases. It sends Bruce into this sort of hallucinogenic state where he recalls the informal memorial he and his friends held for Matches Malone in the previous issue. We learn through the conversation they had during the memorial that Thomas Wayne died in a mass shooting because he stayed outside to help save Matches Malone, who fell and needed somebody to get him back up. Matches carried the burden of guilt all his life, motivating him to take daring risks that were too dangerous for anyone that wanted to stay alive. Waylon, who is Bruce's friend, sees that same self-destructive daring in Bruce starting to develop when he becomes Batman. So he challenges him to say, look, don't kill yourself. The challenge in being a hero isn't dying. The challenge in being a hero is living above what anybody should be able to live through. So I want you to live. While Bruce is struggling to escape in the one room, Freeze has gone over to the other room and contacts his benefactor from the lab. Freeze created this unseasonable snowfall that's been covering the city, and the snow isn't just regular snow, it contains some sort of biogenetic marker that infects anyone it touches. And for some reason, Freeze was contracted to perform this task for his benefactor, who we never see or hear except through his words. Why does he want to do this? We don't know, but we presume from the way the issue ends that it's to track individuals for later experimentation. Suddenly, Batman breaks down the door to confront Freeze, so Bruce has escaped and somehow he got his suit on. In response, Freeze fights him and then he activates a small army of previously frozen individuals who emerge from their cryo chambers and attack Batman as this sort of weird, spindly, zombified mob. Remembering Waylon's challenge from the earlier conversation, Batman chooses to dive out of a window and flee and live rather than fight to the death. The issue ends with Waylon receiving an unexpected visitor, and it's not Batman, and it's not good for Waylon. Final thoughts. What do we think about Absolute Batman number 8? It's dramatic, it's emotional, it's deep and somewhat mature, and it's all embedded in a pretty harrowing tale of horror and escape. Scott Snyder's script well exceeds the level of depth you'd expect to see in a Batman comic, especially anything that we've seen in the last 5 years maybe, as Bruce fights to live rather than fight to the death. I'm not sold on Marcos Martin's flat, squiggly art house style, but he reimagines Mr. Freeze as a creepy, formidable threat. Therefore, Absolute Batman number 8 from DC Comics earns an 8.5 out of 10. I'm pretty happy with this issue. I wish the art was stronger, but the story is really engrossing and I like where this series is headed. It's not so much big, dumb, weird psycho Batman. This is something a little bit more special. But what do you think? Do you like big, bombastic, pinhead Batman doing all kinds of wacky, crazy things? Or do you like something that's a little bit more focused, a little bit more targeted, and maybe even more serious as we have here? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. So, thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.